Hey guys, welcome to another episode of One on One with me, Dr. Bajaj, where we have real conversations and we talk about how this intersects with real self improvement. Now, this episode is amazing. We're diving deep into the topic of what we consider to be modern masculinity with none other than Dr. Robert Glover. He's the best selling author of the book No More Mr. Nice Guy. This is a must read for pretty much everybody, in my opinion. We're unpacking the issues that men are dealing with in today's modern world and how these issues can manifest as physiological and biological deficits and changes. Now, listen, this isn't about outdated stereotypes or routines you've heard about already or surface level advice. This is about what it actually means to be a grounded, resilient, physiologically and psychologically strong man in today's world. Now, you don't want to miss what's ahead. Click the bell to get notified when we have new episodes that drop. Subscribe below and join the conversation. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. So, guys, welcome to another episode of One on One with Dr. Akash Bajaj. I am incredibly honored to present our guest in our conversation today. This man has changed my life personally with his amazing book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's a book I also gift to many of my friends and my clients. Couldn't be more excited to have this conversation today and really pick the brain of somebody who I believe is an absolute genius in his space. So let's go ahead and get into the conversation. Dr.
Yeah.
Glover, thank you for being with us today.
I mean, how could this go wrong being called a genius in the first 30 seconds? So I'm looking forward to picking your brain too. You tell me a little bit about what you do. I'm intrigued by what you do, and so this should be fun.
Sounds great. So I think let's start with kind of, the term nice guy. A lot of people initially may think of that as a positive thing, but
Sure.
what's the big deal about being a nice guy? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, if you'd talked to me 30 years ago, I would have told you I'm a nice guy, and I thought that was a good thing. And of course, people are probably trying to figure it out. Well, is he teaching guys to be assholes? I mean, there's enough assholes out there. We probably don't need to teach. So the way I define a nice guy is he's a guy who, and this can apply to women as well, nice girls. But since I mainly work with men, I'll kind of focus on that. A nice guy is a person who, at an early age, usually in infancy, childhood, inaccurately internalized a belief about themselves that they're bad, they're not good enough, there's something wrong with them. That's called toxic shame.
Hmm.
We all have that to some degree. All children assume they're the cause of everything that happens to them. And so when they have anything that's uncomfortable, they assume they caused it. And it triggers an emotional belief, not an intellectual belief, but emotional belief there's something wrong with me. And for nice guys, what they start doing, often at a very early age, is two things: trying to become what they think other people want them to be liked and loved and get their needs met. So I'll do my best to please you, get your approval. The second thing that nice guys try to do is to hide anything about them that might get a negative reaction.
Hmm.
So we hide our thoughts, our feelings, our wants, our needs are a big one, our emotions are a big one. Our sexuality is huge in terms of nice guys hiding it because we think we'll get a negative reaction if people know that we are sexual beings and have sexual desires and sexual behaviors. So nice guys are walking around kind of like chameleons. We're not particularly authentic. We're trying to please people. We're seeking external validation. We'll tell people what we think they want to hear, which is not nice. So basically, I'm not teaching men to be assholes or jerks. I'm teaching them to be honest, to be real, to be authentic, to be what I call integrated men, where they can take all aspects of themselves. They're light, they're dark, they're spiritual, they're material, they're good, they're bad. Integrate them together, let ourselves see it, and let the world see it. In a here I am. What you see, what you get is kind of person. That makes us authentic. That makes us real. It makes us interesting
Hmm.
to the surprise of many nice guys.
Got it. So those are kind of the major traits of a nice guy. Then those types of behaviors. It sounds like.
Well, there's a lot of things that can characterize nice guys, and not every nice guy is exactly the same. And I found that out when I first started, observing men who identified, as I did, as a nice guy. And I thought maybe we're all alike. We all have the same kind of family situations. We all interact with the world similar, but no, we're all very different. When I started working with nice guys, real common patterns I heard. Some guys said, "Well, my father was just completely absent, wasn't
Mm.
there. Was kind of dependent on mother, or maybe dad was around but not around. Maybe dad was angry or addictive." Nowadays, what I hear a lot of men say is, "My dad was a nice guy." And all he taught me was don't piss off your mother, because that was his main agenda as well, to not piss off the son's mother. A lot of times I hear men say that their mother was, dependent or needy, and they kind of had to go be mom's, caretaker, be the good man for mom. Or sometimes mothers were controlling or narcissistic, and the boy could never do it good enough to please mother.
Mm.
So that, there can be a whole combination of things. There's two kinds of nice guys I found out. One that I call the I'm so good nice guy, and the other is the I'm so bad nice guy. The I'm so good nice guy has, like me, as that was my category. So I assumed all were like me. My shame, my toxic shame, was so pushed down, I wasn't even aware of it. I didn't know I had shame. I thought, I'm a great guy. Why wouldn't everybody, want to be like me? Why wouldn't everybody like me? Why wouldn't all women think I'm great and amazing? Because my shame was so tightly in an airtight compartment, so deep inside. I
Mm.
remember in my second marriage, my second wife was really into self help and personal development, and bless her heart, got me into self help and personal development, even though I already had a PhD in marriage and family therapy. And I remember her reading to me from John Bradshaw's "Healing the Shame That Binds You." She goes, "This is you, this is you," and she's reading to me about shame, and I go, I don't even get it. And I couldn't even
Mm.
really even see how it applied to me. Now, like I said, I already had a PhD in marriage and family therapy. I'm not stupid. So I didn't get what even the concept of shame was, let alone that it applied to me. Now,
Sure.
I did later on, when my then wife confronted me. She says, "You're not such a nice guy. People think you're great, but you can hurt me.
Mm.
You're not trustworthy. You're passive aggressive. You need help." And when I went and got help, I quickly learned that, what drove a lot of my behavior was that toxic shame, where I wanted to be good so that I would be liked and lovable. Now, that's the I'm so good nice guy. We think we're great. The I'm so bad nice guy is often kind of the opposite of that, especially at a young age. Maybe
Mhm.
oppositionally defiant, maybe ADHD, acting out, getting in trouble, always, getting punished because they didn't follow through or remember to do the stuff they said they'd do, getting kicked out of class, getting into fights,
Yeah.
maybe drinking, drugging at an early age, maybe even dropping out of school. But then at some point, that I'm so bad nice guy, has some come to Jesus moment. They find religion, they get married, they have a kid, they get in the military. Something happens where they go, I can't keep living like this. So they kind of develop the nice guy persona of the trying to please, give to get, hiding things but their shame's right next to the surface. And they
Mm.
just know it's only a matter of time till everybody sees how bad they really are. So that's the I'm so bad nice guy. So there's lots of different manifestations of the nice guy, both how we develop this pattern of thinking we have to become what we think people want us to be, hide anything.
Mhm.
So how we develop it, and when we adopt it in our developmental stage in our lifespan.
Mm. It's interesting because it almost sounds like these types of behaviors you would expect would actually cause people to like you and gravitate towards you because ultimately that's the thing you're trying to do. But in a weird way, the inauthenticity comes out anyway. And it sounds like it acts as a repellent, maybe not
It
just to
does.
women, but to male companionship and male friends as well.
It does. Most nice guys that I work with will often say, "I'm more comfortable around women." They're good at pleasing women. They kind of like that acceptance they get from women of being the good guy. And a
Yeah.
lot of a lot of men I work with say, "I'm not comfortable with men. I don't trust them. I was bullied, or my dad was an ass, or and for me, after 30 years of working on myself and with thousands of nice guys, learning how to connect with men is such a
Mhm.
powerful piece of doing nice guy recovery. But you're right. In No More Mr. Nice Guy, first or second chapter, I dive into what makes nice guys not nice.
Mhm.
Because yeah, you would think, well, I'm a nice guy. I treat everybody well. I try to anticipate what they might want, what they might think. I try to help them out. I try to solve their problems. I give. And I'm not angry, or I'm not controlling like all the bad men I've heard women complain about.
Yeah.
I don't just want one thing from women like I've heard women. So we think that should make people like us, is what's called a covert contract that I talk
Right.
about. We're giving, hoping to get something back. But honestly, nice is boring. I talk in the book about nice guys being like Teflon men. We're so smooth. We hide everything. Everything's, so great, but we don't see what's behind the surface. And
Mhm.
kind of an example is, I grew up in the Northwest United States, up in Seattle area.
Sure.
And in that general area in neighboring states, there's a very strong religious group.
Hmm.
And this religious group is known for having strong family values, being very professionally successful, big
Yeah.
families, very devout, going on missions at a certain age. And these people they're the nicest people,
Mm.
and I've had many friends, clients. My accountant, my previous accountant, are all a part of that faith. My
Mm.
business attorneys are all part of that faith. I
Yeah.
don't go looking for that necessarily, but it just seems they're nicest people. And the state of Utah, where this religious movement is based, they can measure this stuff
Mm.
per capita. Has more bandwidth on the internet used to look at porn than any other state in the country.
Wow. That's
Okay.
wild.
Now, so here's a guy that on the outside, always dresses well, nicely groomed, looks good, family man, doing the right things, been on his mission, all that stuff, and they're devouring porn.
Mm.
Why? Because in that need to be nice and look Teflon, this darker stuff gets pushed down, or not even just the darker stuff. Anything that doesn't fit the image gets pushed down, and it's got to find a way out. It's got to
Mm.
come out somewhere. Now, when I talk about being an integrated band, is where we can take all of that stuff, put it, integrate it where we can look at it, let the world see it. That actually makes us interesting.
Hmm.
An example, I about 10 years ago, I was struggling because I'd acted in some ways that I felt bad about, that I thought I'd kind of gotten a handle on that behavior and put it behind me and moved on, but yet I did it again.
Sure.
And I was trying, hurt some people that I cared about. And I was talking with a good friend of mine who's a psychologist and knew me well. And I said, yeah, I can't, I still don't understand why I behaved badly, why I did that. I thought I'd really figured that out. And he just looked at me and said, Robert, you can be a dick, but you're not a dick. And he said, when you can integrate those two things together, you'll have it figured out. And he was right.
Mm.
And when we can integrate our dickishness
Yeah.
with the fact that we're also really great people, but we can
Sure.
be dicks. I can be judgmental as hell. I can be critical. I can be moody. I can be controlling. I can be a lot of things. And if I can actually own those things and let them be a part of who I am, not try to hide them and repress them because I don't want anybody to see them, because people do see them anyway. I
Mm.
remember a conversation I had with my second wife, who I was married to, and I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy. I don't know what prompted me to ask her, but we're lying in bed, and I said, if you could do anything, and there's no consequences, nothing would happen, nothing bad, what would you do? And she was smart enough to not even answer it. She goes, I'm not going to answer that, but what would you do? And I said, oh, rats. And I said, I'd probably take a look at my dark side. Now,
Mm.
I didn't even say I would dive into my dark side. I said, I'd probably take more of a look at my dark side. Her response was, there's probably nothing in there that I don't already know about you.
Interesting.
Okay. So yeah, that stuff is there, and people that get close enough to it, they sense it. They know something's incongruent, something's
Mm.
inauthentic about us. And I promise you, as I started looking at all that stuff and
Hmm.
got more vulnerable, more real, more authentic, now for me, the greatest compliment when somebody tells me, Robert, I appreciate how authentic you are, how real and transparent you are. Nobody would have accused me of those things 30 years ago.
Mm.
And now that I am authentic and real and transparent, and everything about me is on display for the world,
Sure.
I have so many more friends, such
Mm.
deeper relationships. I'm more successful. I'm more confident. I attract people organically without even trying. Why? Because I've integrated all of myself, and it's all working together in one. Am I still doing it? Yeah. Am I still learning? Yeah. Am I still growing? Yeah. Am I still discovering things? But, 30, 35 years ago, I couldn't attract a woman to save my life.
Hmm.
Nowadays, my wife daily points out women that are trying to get my attention or coming on to me. Women
Amazing.
much younger than me as well.
Amazing. Yeah.
And I'm not doing anything, but just me being me, now that I'm more authentic, seems to be more attractive
Mm.
to both men and women as well. I have so many guy friends now. About 7, 8 years ago, maybe I had one and a half good guy friends.
Hmm.
But I went to work on that. or what's getting in the way. And I joined a men's program, and I worked on being authentic and real and connecting with men. And the dividends have paid off tremendously.
It's incredible. It makes me think about like self confidence being a large part of this, right? Because if you're self confident enough, you have the strength to be authentic. And then in the work that I do, we see a lot of self confidence improvement when patients begin to optimize their health, their physicality, their sleep, their substance use or abuse. Have you noticed any sort of a link like that when people really get physically or mentally healthy?
Yeah.
They start to kind of kill the nice guy almost naturally?
You know, just from personal experience, yeah, and of course professional as well.
Yeah,
You mentioned that you tend to work with high performing aging people,
right.
so that's my category. And I launched a new company. In my 60s, I'm 68 now.
Amazing.
Retirement. What's that?
Yeah,
I've said I'm in it for another 20 years.
excellent.
3 out of 4 of my grandparents lived in their 90s. My father's dead. He died of a stroke. My brother and a sister died of diabetes, died of heart attack. My
Hmm.
mother had a stroke about 5 years ago, but her mind's still sharp at 89. So I've got some good genes. So I realized, all right,
Right.
but I got to take care of the vessel, the container.
Absolutely.
Got to pay attention to what lifestyle issues worked against my family.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've always been fairly conscious about trying to be healthy, but not for any extended period of time. Really gave it all my focus. So earlier in the year, my men's membership program, a couple of the coaches launched a fitness challenge. About a dozen of us signed up.
Nice.
And so it was 8 weeks, and they gave us, we checked in daily. They gave us fitness routines. We took pictures of ourselves once a week, and what I noticed, I really got focused on, doing the physical exercise, doing, a lot of dumbbell workouts. I have a gym in my house. My wife's a gym rat. She's at
Yeah.
the gym right now. She works out 2 hours a day. I have to talk myself to get in there for 30 minutes.
Right.
And I was before that doing some videos with a guy named Funk Roberts that does a lot of exercise videos for older guys over 40, alpha he calls it.
Nice.
So I paid attention, but not masterful at it. So after I did this challenge, I lost a little bit of weight, not much, but I could see some more definition in my body. I thought, I want to get serious. So I was leading a workshop here in my house, and I just mentioned I want to find a nutrition coach. 2 people in the workshop said, I know one. And it was a different person for each.
Yeah.
So I connected with one who has a master's in gerontology, and she's a former fitness model. And I remember our first conversation. I said, "Listen, just give me a diet plan I can follow. One is eat. I'll just stick with it. I'm not going to count macros. I'm not going to count calories." And she said, "We're not going to do it that way. You are going to count macros. We are going to count calories." And she basically, has taken over. I've been working with her over 3 months, kind of taken over. Like, and then she said, "Well, tell me about your workout routine. Just step at a time, step at a time, step at a time."
Right.
And she says, "We got to get you in the gym lifting heavier weights more." And so I'm just 3 months, a little over 3 months working with her, and dropped. Well, not in the last 3 months, but since I've started paying more attention, I've dropped 9 kilos,
Oh,
and
great.
probably since working with her, probably dropped 4 or 5 kilos. I'm now down at 81 kilos, so 180, 179 pounds.
It's great.
I'm the leanest I've been in 25 years. 25 years
Amazing.
ago, I did a Body for Life fitness challenge and
Hmm.
got down to single digit body fat. This is
Mm.
the first time I've been there, and I'm 68 now. And so I'm working, I've been working with her, and it feels really good. So to answer your question, yeah, when I look at my body in the mirror now, still got just a little bit of softness around the belly. I don't
Sure.
know if I'm going to worry about losing that. I'll keep just more focused now on kind of creating muscle gains, and that will
Yeah.
probably, if I keep doing what I'm doing, seems like every time I up my calories, I lose more weight. But of course, eating pretty healthy way.
Right.
And I've enjoyed doing it. The counting the macros, using the app, my Fitness Pal.
Yeah.
It's like working a puzzle every day. That
Right.
kind of keeps me engaged and interested and planning ahead. And
Sure.
and it's energized me to where, like, okay, if I can do that in my late 60s, if I can get lean, if I can get strong, what else can I do? And so it gives me a sense of mastery. I like looking in the mirror now. Kind of one of my goals was to look good naked. The closest one to it was I want to be able to tuck my shirts in. I usually don't have to, I don't usually wear shirts that you tuck in. Yeah, I live in Mexico, so I wear shorts and polo shirts and
Yeah.
t-shirts but I want to be able to like tuck in a dress shirt
Hmm.
and look good, without
Sure.
the bulge.
Yeah.
So that giving that my focus and thankfully having a coach that didn't let me get away, which is
Hmm.
kind of mailing it in and doing, I now, now I'm watching podcasts, with, Peter Attia,
Yeah.
Mike Israetel, is that his name?
Hmm.
Watching, people that really know their shit,
Yeah.
watching, Chris Williamson, as he interviews people that know their stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm learning, and I'm excited. And
Yeah.
the beauty of mastery, that at least for us men, if we feel masterful, therefore confident in any area, it gives us a sense. Oh, if I got masterful at that, I can get masterful at this or that or that. So whether
Yes.
I get masterful with money, or I can get masterful with marketing my business, or I can get masterful with women, or I can get masterful with sex, we can get masterful. And so, yeah, having success in one area does generalize a confidence to other areas as well. And people are definitely attracted to confidence. In terms just of like with men and women, I tell guys, if a guy interacts with a woman with confidence, she experiences the exact same brain chemicals that we would experience if she lifted her shirt and showed us her breasts. Right?
Interesting.
We don't have to think, do I like that? Is that interesting? We feel something, right? The woman doesn't have to think, do I like this guy? No, she just feels a brain chemistry that goes, I like being around this guy because
Sure.
it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's exactly what I've noticed with our clients as well. As a Western trained medical doctor, we're originally trained to really focus on what's the problem, excuse me, what's the organic problem, and what can I do to fix that particular problem only and move on.
Right.
But kind of in developing more of this kind of bespoke custom, program that I talked to you briefly about that we do, it's so much bigger than that, and that mind
Yeah.
body connection, it just can't be ignored any longer. I mean, this is why things like the placebo effect have a 30% success rate. It's
It's a
incredible.
connection to the brain and the body.
That's right.
And I agree because, like watching, the interviews and the podcasts that I watch with people that are in this, this world that you're in,
Yeah.
like, anybody that knows their shit, if somebody says, what's the number one thing a man can do to, raise his testosterone? And the number one answer is get enough sleep. And,
100%.
100%. Want to lower your weight? Get enough sleep. Want
That's
to
exactly
get your HRV, up? Get enough sleep. And so, it boils down to we got to get enough sleep. We have to have regular, strenuous physical exercise.
that's
Like
right.
when my coach says, "All right, 7 days a week, I want you in zone 2 cardio at least 30 minutes a day."
Hmm.
On top of that doesn't even count going to the gym. All right, that's just and okay, so we got to have a regular strenuous exercise. And she said, I want you lifting heavier weights. All right, got to be challenging my muscle
Right.
because muscles where we store glucose, and
Right.
strong muscles is what keep us from falling and breaking our hips as we get older.
Absolutely.
So okay, so we got to be building muscle. We got to be eating healthy. When my coach started me at 185 grams of protein a day, I'm doing. I go, what the fuck? That's a lot of protein. I can't get, and then tracking a certain amount of
Yeah.
carbs and a certain amount of fats, and and then I talked her into lowering it, and then I was losing too much weight. She says, no, let's up it back up. And, I started getting hungry a lot. She says, you're increasing your metabolism. You're getting muscle
Yeah.
mass. You need.
That's right.
So we bumped it back up to 185. And so I bumped my calories back up last week and I lost some more weight. Go figure.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
so we got to be paying attention to what we eat. All this stuff.
Right.
We've got to be lowering our stress level because stress and cortisol, just go hand in hand. And cortisol doesn't go well with all the things we're trying to, accomplish. I mean, cortisol is necessary for a
Yeah,
lot of things,
absolutely. Yeah.
to wake us up in the morning. Of course, we need a little bit of cortisol. focusing on social interaction and
Hmm.
relaxation and hormone balances and interaction. I mean, all those pieces that I know you do for a living is the
Yes.
stuff that I've been looking at. And it's not just one thing. I can't just go to the gym a lot. I can't just eat better, or I can't just get enough sleep, or I got to do all those things. So those are all essential for
Yep.
my well-being, and the interplay of them goes beyond what even what we can even see. Because how do we track our insulin spikes? How do we track? I mean, you can do it, I know, but our glucose rates or
Right.
our cortisol spikes, or
Right.
we've got to develop that lifestyle with the good habits that take us in that direction. That we know they're
Sure.
working. We know that that's going to work well in our body.
That's right. And just playing, excuse me, playing off of that, a lot of my clients, when they first come in, they tend to be, high powered, kind of male clients for the most part. And it's interesting. They come into me to get physically dialed in and physically optimized, but 99% of the time, their complaints are more psychological. I'm
Yeah,
tired. I'm not feeling like I want to be intimate with my partner anymore. I'm depressed. I'm just kind of down, but they're looking for that kind of magic bullet sometimes. And what I always tell my clients is simply, listen, we have a lot of tools in the toolbox, and we can certainly use those tools when the time is right. But fundamentally, we need to get the foundational things under control first, like sleep. Because as you alluded to, and you're correct, sleep alone will get your testosterone and your growth hormone back to where they need to be. In addition to that, the world we live in today is so arguably high stress. Excuse me, doesn't need to be, but it's artificially high stress, and that can whack your cortisol completely out of control, which now doesn't let you sleep, and that can
yeah,
lead to chronic degenerative changes. So, hey, if I say, as your doctor, go do heavy weight bearing activity, and I'll see you in a month. That's kind of a ridiculous approach, frankly, because they just can't do it until they get the foundational things under control first. And then what I've noticed, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is okay, doc, I'll sleep better. I'll use the MyFitnessPal app, like you
mm.
mentioned. We use that as well. I'll do, these things. We'll measure, like we use measuring tools for all of our clients as well. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
I got the
charging
whoop.
right now. You're charging right now.
You're
Yeah.
right. I am charging right now.
But as you know, if you're not measuring it, there's no way to really know. And just that alone sometimes will get clients 80% of the way there. And then we can kind of top off the things with, optimizing hormones, peptide supplements, whatever the case may be. And then a very interesting byproduct that I've seen is they'll come to me and say, hey, my wife is kind of attracted to me again.
Hmm.
Or, hey, my friends are hanging out more. I'm meeting new people, or my energy is changing. And I'm wondering, like, a lot of that kind of like mismanagement, let's say physiologically, I wonder how much that plays into becoming a nice guy almost by some sort of physiological component or default in addition to everything else.
Oh, that's an interesting supposition. You know, the nice guy syndrome is fundamentally based on an inaccurate belief. I'm not okay just as I am.
Yeah.
Again, that toxic shame.
Yeah.
And toxic shame isn't rational.
Hmm.
It's an emotional belief that then, if we feel I'm not good enough, we will go find evidence to support that.
Sure.
And and so often we will live in a way that supports that I'm not good enough. I'm bad. I'm defective. I'm unlovable.
Mm.
Um, most people when they get sober, kind of one of the first things they deal with is their toxic shame.
Hmm.
That feeling like they weren't good enough kind of makes it easier to go do things that aren't good for yourself.
Hmm. Makes
Um,
sense.
and then it takes a while, like for a recovering addict, to start building enough sense of I'm worth something. I'm worth not drinking. I'm worth not doing the drugs. I'm worth not gambling. I'm worth getting enough sleep at night. Right.
Yeah.
And so I have no doubt that if we do not feel good about ourselves, we will act accordingly. We'll act consistently. One thing about the human mind is it craves congruence, right?
Mm.
It loves the neural pathways that it knows. It doesn't want to create new pathways. It's too much work to create a new neural pathway and get the myelin and all that stuff. You know all of that.
Sure.
And so let's just go back to what we know. And the kind of like the devil we know is the devil we know. The ghetto we know is the ghetto we know.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I've realized is that one way to release shame is to go find safe people and start just revealing it. I began that way in a 12-step group, and I just started saying the things I'd never told anybody before. And it
Mm,
felt really good. It felt really liberating. Another way to do deep shame work is to create cognitive and emotional dissonance within ourselves. Right?
hmm
So I know, kind of going back to my fitness push right now,
Sure.
I know I'm working against at least two things that are going to be working in my unconscious. Carl Jung said, "Till we make the unconscious conscious, it'll rule our life, and we'll call it fate."
hmm
So I'm conscious of at least two things in the shadow of my unconscious in terms of getting fit and healthy. One of them is that in the past, that I've gotten in, anytime I've gotten into really good shape, I experienced loss.
Hmm.
When I was in graduate school, I took up running. I was running 10Ks and got really lean. Uh, Soon figured out I had to start lifting weights. So I started lifting weights in my 20s. I just got too skinny.
Yeah.
But my then wife, my first wife, lost all interest in me. Didn't want to have sex anymore, and kind of, being a nice guy, I didn't usually, ask real questions about the real thing. But I said, "How come you don't want to have sex anymore?" And she said, "Well, you're in good shape. You look good. You could have anybody you want." I go, "Yeah, I want you."
Mm.
And so she withdrew sexually when I got into good shape.
Hmm.
Fast forward, when I did that Body for Life program 25 years ago with my second wife, and then as I was getting in good shape, she never wanted to have sex anymore. "Oh, your
Hmm.
body's changed. It doesn't feel like you. I feel too big. You feel small. Oh, your prickly chest where you're shaving." And she went off and had an affair in Italy with some guy for 10
Oh,
days and
man.
did things sexually with him that she never did with me, right?
Man.
All right. Guess what? I started gaining the weight again.
Yeah.
15 years ago, 12, 15 years ago, 2008, 2009. I got a trainer and really, got on a good diet, warrior diet. It worked well for me. And I started getting lean and strong again, was looking good. And I know there's no connection, but my father died.
Mm.
3 months later, my brother dies. 7 months later, my sister dies. So I've got this pattern in my life that, bad things have happened when
Mm.
I've been in good shape.
Interesting.
Rationally, I know that even though there might be a correlation, there's no causation. Okay.
Sure.
But emotions don't work that way. Emotions don't
Right.
work rationally. Emotions know I've gotten to this place before. My emotional mind has made a connection, a correlation between I'm in good shape. Now I think it goes even deeper than that. So one thing that I do know is true for all human beings. Like I said, we like congruence. We like continuity.
Sure.
So right now, when I look in the mirror, when I look at the scale, I'm 81 kilos. I look in the mirror, I go, man, I don't have a belly anymore. Still got just a slight, love handle here, but
Yeah.
man, it's like I don't look like a pear anymore. And
Great.
and I look at that, and my wife, you get in bed, and she's touching my body a lot. Now she's like always liked me and always liked sex. So I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like, but she's like touching me more than ever. And when she touches me, and when I touch me, I go, I feel different. This feels good. This feels strong. This feels lean.
It's great.
Okay. At some point, my brain and my emotional system is going to go, this doesn't feel normal.
Mm.
Now an emotional dissonance, a nervous system dissonance. This doesn't feel like me, right? Even looking in the mirror, I go, this doesn't look like me. Well,
Mm-hmm.
who is me? I mean, I've actually kind of mentally worked. Who is me if I don't have this belly? Is
Right.
it still me? I
Mm.
don't even know who that me is.
Sure.
So I'm conscious enough to know that somewhere in my emotional system, if I get enough emotional dissonance, maybe in this case, not so much a cognitive dissonance, my body, my brain, my nervous system will want to go back, will start slipping back into old familiar behaviors, the me that it knows.
Sure.
So I'm creating a new me, a new identity, just
Right.
by losing X number of kilos and keeping them off. I know every time in the past I've gotten to this weight, I've gained the weight back again.
Mm,
So why? Well, I could point to this, this, and this, but primarily because the new me did not get integrated into my nervous system.
right.
So that's where I become a big fan of having support systems.
Okay.
I'm in an exercise accountability group. I've got a coach that I will keep paying this coach.
Mm-hmm.
I may get all the information she has to give me at some point, but I'll probably keep paying her
Mm-hmm.
to keep checking in and to keep mailing pictures of my app where I get on the
Yeah.
scale,
Yeah.
to keep mailing pictures of me,
Mm-hmm.
just because that slippage can come back in so easy until, and I don't know where that point is, there will be some point where this now is me.
Sure.
And if I put on a few pounds, it'll go, that does not feel like me. Or if I, have a carb binge or two, that doesn't feel like me.
Mm-hmm.
When I don't hit a protein mark, wait a minute, what have I eaten today?
Mm,
I want to get to the point where this is the new me
yes.
that feels like the set point, that
Yeah.
feels like home. And that just takes work because, as you know, most of us, whether we, have success at work, success financially, maybe success with women, success in any area, if that success runs contrary to our old way of being and seeing ourselves emotionally,
Yes.
there's a high likelihood we'll sabotage that in some unconscious way, and then we'll get back
Yes.
to like a guy told me years ago. He was in one of my No More Mr. Nice Guy groups for single men, and he
Mm-hmm.
began a group of saying, "Robert, I haven't been going on any dates lately."
Mm-hmm.
I go, "Why? What happened? You were going on lots of dates. You were getting laid. You were having success."
Yeah.
And he goes, "I quit doing the things that I was doing. I quit doing the things you taught us to do." And I go, I don't know if I came out and said out loud, "That's stupid." I might have. I'm known to do that. I might have said, "That's crazy. That's
Right.
stupid. You
Yeah.
were having success. Why did you quit doing the things that were working?"
Right. Why mess with it?
He goes, "Because they worked." And I go, "I'm going to have to work to." And so I sat down with that because they worked.
Yeah.
And back then I was doing podcasts for my dating programs,
Yes.
just, answering questions. So I sat down to do a podcast about the fear of success.
I wanted
It
to talk
turned
about that. Yeah.
it turned out to be a 7-part podcast because it was so personal. I ended up doing mind maps of myself. What is my fear of success? Because that's something I've struggled with. Is that,
Mm-hmm.
people look at me as maybe relatively successful, but I'm capable of so much more. And it's taken me a long time to get here,
Sure.
mainly because of just my old ways of being and my old fears and my old codependencies and my old anxieties
Sure.
just block me living at my full potential.
Sure.
So, yeah, this fear of success. Right now, I'm successful with
Yeah.
my weight loss and kind of how I'm sculpting my
Yeah.
body. Something's going to start poking. Will I
Yeah.
fall and get hurt?
Yeah.
Will I get too busy? Will I get too distracted? Well,
Sure.
I I forget. Well, I decide I don't need to use the app anymore. What will happen? But I'm on the alert for it
Yes.
because I know, and it will come up in a really sneaky way. It'll
Unexpected.
come some way I'm not looking for. It'll come sneaking in the back door.
Right. It almost makes me think that, like, as a nice guy, right, and personally as a recovering nice guy, as I told you, you can never really take your foot off the gas. Like, you can get to a point, but it's almost like you're never really recovered from that until you reset your baseline thermometer, your baseline temperature. Um, like if we're used to living at 80 degrees, call it, which is a certain body fat, just resetting that process can take years potentially to move forward to the next stage.
And yeah, all of that because again,
Yeah.
change is challenging. And I tell
Yeah.
people I'm a recovering nice guy as well, because so much of this isn't just in our head. It's not like I've just read enough books
Yeah.
and it really is rewiring a nervous system that
Yeah.
at a very early age learned to adapt by
Sure.
viewing self and the world in a certain way. And rewiring that nervous system is challenging. Guys come to me all the time and they say, "How long is this going to take?" And I'll
Right.
go, "I don't know. I'll let you know when I find out." Um, I don't know, but it'd be like guys going to a trainer at the gym, and
Yeah.
saying, "I want to work out and get in shape. How long? How long do I have to do this?"
Yeah.
Well, you probably need to make a lifetime commitment to it. It'd be
Yeah.
like me telling my nutrition coach, "How long is it going to take me to lose 10 pounds?" And she
Yeah.
goes, "Well, you're going to have to work at this the rest of your life to keep
Yep.
it." But when it comes to personal development, we seem to want to, well, if I just read the right book, go to the right workshop, go to the right Tony Robbins program, whatever. But you know what? Everybody goes to Tony Robbins programs, and they go to Joe Dispenza programs, they go to whatever, and then
Yeah.
like 2 weeks later, they're right back where they were,
Back to
but
baseline.
back to baseline. Exactly.
Interesting what you said about the Tony Robbins events and all that. They're great events, but you're absolutely right. Like they are basically just almost like a recurring annuity for those folks because nothing gets truly reset. And I've noticed with my clients,
And maybe they
reset.
do. Maybe things get reset, but maybe the work of resetting does require repeated doses
Repeated
because like same thing.
exposure.
It'd be like saying, "Hey, I got a good night's sleep last night. I should be good to go the rest of the week." Well, no, you
Hmm.
need a good night's sleep tonight, tomorrow night, the next night. So I think we have these unrealistic expectations about what is personal development or personal recovery. It probably is a lifelong process of repeating the things that do seem to work best to move that process along. So it may be we need to go to a lot of workshops. It may be we need to
Sure.
meditate every day, not just a week and call it good. Maybe we need to do our journal writing. Maybe we need to work with a coach or a therapist ongoing, just because, just like you work with people's health, they come in, you can set them straight. You can give them everything they need to get going, and they may get off to a good start,
Yeah.
but they still got to do it every day. And they probably still need to check in with you, and you still need to fine tune it, and you still need to adapt as things change in the environment. So this expectation is, okay, I figured out my nice guy syndrome. I should be good to go. I found it's just so deeply wired in my nervous system that I just need ongoing support systems, accountability groups, people who know me well. I know what works for me.
Hmm.
I got to
Yeah.
keep doing what works.
Why do you think it's so hard for us to stick to a system that we know that works and has worked for us, and we get to some sort of point and we stop? I mean, in all dimensions, right? Psychologically, physically, even relationship wise, some of us stop dating our wives and things go to shit. Like, why is it so hard for us to keep going with a good thing?
That is a good question. We lose weight and then let's go celebrate and eat a big dinner that
Yeah.
takes us off our diet. Going back to that fear of success, in looking at it, a conclusion I came to, because fear of success can show up in so many ways and it's so insidious. Most of us think we're afraid of failure, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of looking stupid, afraid of having a loss.
Sure.
I think fear of success is probably even a deeper fear and is so much more unconscious and insidious in how it affects our unconscious actions.
Hmm.
And the what I came away with in terms of any fear of success, whether it's the guy, if he walks up and talks to a woman and it goes well, and he quits doing that, all right, or
Hmm.
I lose weight and it's working well and I quit doing it. Here's the thing, and it goes back to those correlations that I make between when I'm in really good shape. If if there is a possibility, if the action we take leads to possible in outcomes that have negative consequences,
Hmm.
it might make sense not to do the thing that leads to those possible negative outcomes. Let me give illustration. So the guy in my workshops, for example, I'll ask guys, all right, what is we'll just mastermind it. What is everything that could go wrong if you walk across the room and talk to a pretty woman?
Sure.
Okay. well, I might look foolish. She might shoot me down, get rejected, get a drink thrown in my face. Her boyfriend might beat me up. But even like, oh, she might become my girlfriend. And then I might find out that she's a total bitch. Or I might marry her and have kids. And then she'll take me to the cleaners and, slam me on social media and tell me I'm a terrible human being. And yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Any number of things could possibly go wrong. Even if
Sure.
things go right, for the going right part might lead to things that go really wrong.
Sure.
Or similarly, I'll ask guys, all right, what are all the things that might go wrong if you try to put your penis in a vagina? All
Mm-hmm.
right, well, I might not get it up. I might come too quickly. I might not be able to come at all. I might lose my erection. I might not be able to make her come. I might get in. It used to be STDs. Is it STI now? I think that the term is.
Yeah.
I might get a disease, right? I
Right.
might get her pregnant.
Yeah.
She may become my girlfriend, and then I have to deal with her, for the rest of my life. All the things that might go wrong. So
Yeah.
whether it's what if I get financially successful? What if I get into really good shape? What if I launch my business and it succeeds? There's a lot of things that might go wrong. And for usually the biggest part is just fear of unknown. What
Mm-hmm.
are the things that are going to come at me? In terms of, you say you're kind of new building your podcast. Um, I had to deal with a fear. I've been kind of started dealing with this about 7, 8 years ago. That if I publish more books, if I get more visible, if I get big, will I get attacked? And
Mm.
I think probably anybody nowadays has to sit and take that, soberly look at that.
Sure.
If
Sure.
I have a big presence in the world, I'm going to draw negative attention. That's just the nature of the world we live in.
Sure.
Will I get canceled? Will I get attacked on social media? Will somebody accuse me of something I haven't done?
Right.
And so those are consequences of
Mm-hmm.
success. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had to soberly look at those things. Could I handle that if somebody comes after me or starts trying to ruin my reputation or hurt my
Mm-hmm.
business or cost me
Mm-hmm.
money?
Sure.
Could I handle it? And so
Right.
here's the deal: the fear of success makes sense. Not doing the things that might lead to possible success makes sense
Mm-hmm.
if you don't think you can handle those possible consequences. But what if you knew? What if I can adapt? What if I can hire people to help me with the work? What if I get stronger? What if I develop more skill sets? What if I just learn to accept things that are out of my control? Now I can take that chance. Now I can take that risk.
Yeah.
Is me getting and staying in shape going to cause somebody I love to leave me in some fundamental way?
Mm-hmm.
There's no correlation
Mm-hmm.
or causation, but my mind doesn't know that. Do I know I can handle it? If
Mm-hmm.
something happened to if my mother passed away, if my wife passed away, if my dog got hit by a truck,
Mm-hmm.
if whatever, if I know, okay, that would hurt. Can I
Yeah.
handle it? Yes, I can. I've handled it before. I can continue on the path of doing whatever will lead to a greater success, a greater visibility, a greater power, a greater influence, a greater, whatever that thing is. If I know I can handle the outcome, I can go for it. So that we kind of have to walk through that process.
Yeah.
Anytime we make major changes, it's healthy to ask ourselves, what are the other changes in life I might experience? If somebody picks up No More Mr. Nice Guy, and see in the book I say, that probably only about 30% of relationships make it after a
Right.
guy reads No More. The guy goes, I couldn't handle that, puts the book down. But
Mm.
what if you read that and go, that might be for the best? I'll handle it. That might be hard, but this
Yes.
seems to be telling me a truth I need to hear. The men in general, but nice guys especially, want to do things on our own. Just
Mm-hmm.
just give me the game plan, give me the book. I'll go to the workshop. I'll do it on my
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest mistake we make, because every success I've had in life, I've done it with support systems. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
really big believer. I'm a big believer in men's groups, men's programs, accountability groups. So, like, for example, I bet, studies have probably been done, similar studies, and you probably could even do a informal casual study yourself. All right, the people that come to you, let's say the men that come to you,
Yeah.
kind of set up a good placebo double blind, type study
Yeah.
of put X amount of the men who come to you, do all your measurements, pre-test, post-test, all the
Yes.
program, they follow the same program,
Yes.
put some of them in a support group, of other clients. You're not called clients. They're not customers. They're patients, right?
Patience,
Yeah,
yeah.
other patients. Get a group. Put 8 of them in a group of other men where they ideally meet in person
Hmm.
regularly.
Hmm.
Once a week would be great, but even just once a month. Check in with each other online. Share their results of their behavior commitments with each other. Check
Hmm.
in, support, and do 8 other guys that don't have that group. Now it's still
Sure.
going to be a very small sample, small n, but
Right.
it'd be a good starting point. And so,
Sure.
what if you, even if you just casually did this without even trying to make it a study? I promise you, the men who got in the support system and stayed in it, participated in it, got
Hmm.
vulnerable, got real, took
Hmm.
advantage of it, will not only probably have better results. Early on, you might see similar results, but I
Hmm.
promise you the sustained long term results are probably going to occur most with the people who didn't do it alone, who worked with other people on a similar journey, having similar challenges, similar experiences, similar successes. That just, especially for us men, we grew up in tribes. We
Yep.
do best in groups. So the number one thing I'd say to any man, if you want to change anything of significance in your life, if you want to write a book, join a writers group. If you want to run, go join a runners group. If you want to lose
Hmm.
weight, get a nutrition coach.
Hmm.
When I wanted to learn to meditate last year,
Hmm. Hmm.
I hired a meditation coach, believe it or not, and I
Yeah.
meditated 100 consecutive days. I'd never done that in my life, right?
Amazing.
And now that I'm not engaging with that coach anymore, I'm sporadic. But
Sure.
when I had the coach, I did it 100. We checked in every single day, sent each other a screenshot of the app we were using that
Hmm.
tracked 100 consecutive days. My coach had never even done 100 consecutive days
Yeah.
of meditation, right?
Yeah. That's amazing.
So get a team.
Yeah.
Don't do it alone. We guys, we're egotistical. We're arrogant. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to take the time.
Yeah.
It will 10x the results if we get a
Okay.
team.
So if we have let's say a nice guy is watching this or listening to this down the road and they're like, this sounds great. I don't know how to start. What do you think is like, what comes first, I guess, the chicken or the egg? Like, is that person better off to start restructuring their belief system, or are they better off to maybe say, I'm going to go ahead and focus on losing the 10 pounds extra that I have first to kind of build myself up self confidence and maybe even physiologically, and then start working on my belief system? Like, how would you kind of direct
All,
that
all,
person?
all of the above.
Yeah.
I had another interview before you today, talking with a guy in Europe, a younger guy, about 35.
Uh
And he's
huh.
talking about right now, he's really working on himself,
Hmm.
growing his podcast, going to the gym. Where he said, I'm not dating so much. I've been 3 years since I've been in a relationship. I've got the apps. And I go, guys say, because I've got a couple books on dating, unconscious dating. And guys say,
Yep.
well, should I wait till what I call get my great cake of a life? And,
Hmm.
that's different for every guy, but usually it involves good connection with men, leaning into challenge, regular strenuous exercise, um, just kind of our own spiritual, personal growth and development. We get to decide what's our great cake. And I go, and then a great woman can be the icing on top of the great cake.
I
And
love that.
a lot of times I said, woman, if you make a woman the cake, it's not going to work. And if
Yeah.
you even make her one of the key ingredients, it won't work. And she doesn't want to be. So
Yeah.
you have a great cake that's very attractive to the feminine. And guys will say, well, should I wait till I get my great cake before I start looking for icing? I go, no, go work at being a social animal. Get out and play. So I told this guy in the interview, all right, here's my challenge. All right. I said, get out of your house. He goes, I'm in my house all the time. And I go, well, miracles happen around people. Unless you got a living room full of people, you're not going to have any miracles. Right. And so I said, he said, well, okay, I'll make a commitment to talk to one stranger a week. And I go, what the fuck? 3 a day.
Yes.
So I said, make a commitment to get out of your house and 3 strangers a day, not just pretty women, 3
Yeah.
strangers, young, old, kids, doesn't matter. Just say, how's your day going so far? Hey, where are you from? What's good here? And,
Hmm.
and, and, he, and he gets this panic. I go, listen, a woman's going to be attracted to your lifestyle, not
Hmm.
just the fact that you got a podcast or not just the fact that you do go to the gym. All good stuff, right?
Sure.
But what is your lifestyle? What is going to the gym get you? What is doing a podcast get you if you don't have a kick-ass lifestyle for you? right?
Yes.
And what woman's going to want to come be icing on a cake that doesn't exist? So
Yeah.
go build all the skills and
Hmm.
don't wait to work on this one, because that's a guy question and say, well, should I work on this one first or work on this one first?
Yeah. Yeah.
What I think is helpful for nice guys is to, number one, have a good understanding of what it means, right? What
Hmm.
exactly does that mean? And I've had so many men who've written me, who've told me in interviews, who've come to my workshops, said, Robert, I'd read hundreds and hundreds of self-help books, been to hundreds of seminars and workshops. It wasn't until I read No More Mr. Nice Guy that it all clicked. I
Yeah.
understood. And it's
Yeah.
not that the book is like that amazing of a book. I like it. I think it's well
It's
written.
a pretty good book. Yeah.
But what it does is it really cuts to where the nice guy, the light bulbs just go off. Oh, I get it. Because I didn't think I was good enough. I was trying to become what I think other people want me to be, hiding things from me, and that doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, I just try harder doing the same thing that doesn't work. Kind of the whole
Mhm.
Einsteinian definition
Yeah.
of insanity, right?
Yeah.
So now that I know why it doesn't work and why I've been doing it, it's like that's just the most liberating thing. That alone can create a big shift in a nice guy's life. Just a understanding of why their old paradigm of giving to get, covert contracts, hiding their shame, trying to seek approval, they get it. And I
Hmm.
know where and they go, I even know where it came from now.
Hmm.
Now, kind of like the whole conversation we've been having, is that enough to rewire their nervous system and now
Yeah.
everything? Well, no. Now we go to work on paying attention of how it shows up in our life, whether
Yes.
it's in relationship, whether it's in work and career, whether it's do we get to the gym regularly or not.
Yeah.
We notice where it shows up and then start taking steps, usually again with the help of others, a coach, a therapist, a men's group, a support team,
Hmm.
accountability team.
Hmm.
We start taking steps now to apply what we're learning to what we're doing.
Mm.
And that and behaviorally, learning something is essential often for making change, but not sufficient for
Absolutely.
change. And as you've alluded to, sometimes just changing behavior can change internal perceptions and
Hmm.
beliefs if we're paying attention. Because, like, for example, you might get somebody sleeping well and eating well and going to the gym, and he's having good results, and you don't hear from him for 3 months, and then maybe 6 months or a year later he gets back in touch with you and he gained all the weight back.
Right.
And you go, what happened? Well, what I was doing was work, but then I quit doing it. Well, again, he bumped into, that thing, that nervous a thing called the nervous system,
Yeah.
our self-limiting beliefs, our cognitive limitations, our upper limiting, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
Joe Dispenza says we were choosing the wrong quantum, sphere to dwell, whatever.
Right.
So it's going to happen. So again, just changing behavior is often not sufficient over
Hmm.
the long run, because once we run into the cognitive or emotional dissonance, that the old pattern will usually win.
Yeah. I guess if you can get the reinforcement with the changed behavior, that might help. Like I know you talk about this too, and I'd love to hear you like talk to us about emotional tension and how that can maybe reinforce those types of positive behaviors when men are trying to change themselves.
Well, I usually talk about emotional tension in a little bit different context,
Sure.
usually in terms of relating to women. And
Sure.
my premise is that women have to experience emotional tension in
Yeah.
order to feel attraction towards a man, sexual desire, and stay connected to him over time.
Hmm.
The problem is we men don't tend to like emotional tension, especially in relationship. We want things calm. We want things locked down. We want things, copacetic, homeostatic. We don't want change, right?
Yeah.
Just, okay, you're my woman. Okay, let's just leave it at that. All right, why are you complaining again? Why are you demanding something else? Why are you creating drama? We don't like it.
Right.
Men, the tension we men do go into often has a clock on it. Whether it's the action flick that's 2 hours long, we know how it's going to end. The
Hmm.
sporting event, they even put clocks on baseball now,
Hmm.
maybe because it didn't have enough tension. I don't know. You
Yeah.
know, Football, basketball, hockey, all
Yeah.
got clocks. We can only take so much tension, right?
Right.
Only one overtime. Don't make us suffer through two overtimes. That's too much tension, right?
That's funny.
So we want to limit tension. So
Hmm.
one of the things I tell men, that learning and understanding how to create the kind of emotional tension that does naturally attract women and turn them on and keep them connected to you over time. You know, guys, a lot of guys want to take my courses on what I call PET, positive emotional tension, basically because they want to get laid. It's kind of like the reason men go to the internet anyway. Well, let me just find the tricks and techniques to get the hot woman to want to get naked with me. I call those guys geeks with techniques.
Yeah.
They don't really want to do the deeper work,
Right. Right.
You know, just give me the quick, easy fix. That's kind of a guy thing. It's a nice guy thing. But I tell men, if you can truly master the concept of emotional tension in terms of relating to the feminine and the way that I teach it, not only is it a masterful and loving gift to give to a woman, that you create the kind of tension that keeps her, you know, her pot boiling, her teapot steaming, and her fire going. That's a gift. Women will thank you for that. They'll apologize. They'll go, "Oh, I'm just sorry. I'm usually not this wet all the time. You know, I don't normally have as many orgasms. You know, I'm embarrassed. You know, they'll apologize because you've created that emotional tension.
Yeah.
So it's not trying to get a woman to give you something. It's actually a gift we give women. But and I'll put an and. It may be one of the most powerful masculine initiations I know. That if we can get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, which is what all masculine initiation is often a death experience, but mainly is how do I get comfortable feeling uncomfortable and hang in there and not eject, right? Most of us have not had that training in life unless maybe you've played a lot of sports, maybe done martial arts, joined the military. There are certain areas you can learn to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable without ejecting, getting through the discomfort, mastering it. Okay.
Yeah.
Most men have not experienced that. Most have not with women. So with women being this, you know, this thing that we just don't fucking understand as men. And if we can learn to set the tone and create an emotional tension and stay conscious, and if that gives us to keep showing up in conscious ways and doing the acting and being and doing the things that create the kind of emotional tension for a woman that keeps her you know, keeps her lit up 24/7.
Yeah.
That's powerful masculine initiation.
Yeah.
And I believe that if we can learn to master the skills with women, I think we can probably master just about anything in life because everything else is feminine as well. Money, opportunity, adventure are all feminine. They're all just those swirling, chaotic parts of the cosmos.
Yeah.
And so if a man gets masterful at creating emotional tension with a woman, that gets generalized to a mastery in other areas of life. Because we know, hey, I survived creating emotional tension for a woman. I can survive anything.
Sure. It's interesting. It kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, which is if the thing is working, just keep doing it. You know, ultimately in all aspects of life, just maintaining that.
That's not a bad mantra. If it's fucking working, keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, one thing I picked up on with this conversation in general is there seems, for nice guys, there seems to be a lot of like underlying anxiety on a lot of these things. Like, if I do this, what's going to happen here? If I'm successful, a lot of forward projection, a lot of anxiety. I mean, I guess in your opinion, is the nice guy syndrome an anxious type like subset, or how would you look at that?
Yeah. You know, yes. When I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, I mentioned the toxic shame thing.
Yeah.
And that's really what I honed in on while I was doing my earliest recovery, working with nice guys, was working around shame. And so about the time maybe I'd finished writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, I'd also really started tuning into this anxiety factor, both in myself and in other men. And so by the time the book was done written, and I was at that time I was leading like 5 No More Mr. Nice Guy men's groups a week.
Wow.
And you know, almost without fail, a few times a week, somebody in one of the groups said, "Robert, can we talk about soothing anxiety again? Can we go over that again?" So I really came to see that probably anxiety and shame are probably the two kind of core foundational things about underneath nice guy syndrome. And so, yeah, pretty much everything a nice guy does is trying to manage his anxiety states. And what I teach men is learning how to soothe our anxiety rather than manage it, as I call it. To me, my definition of managing anxiety is trying to control people or situations, things outside of us, so we don't feel anxious on the inside. But
Hmm.
if we can learn to soothe our anxiety in here through learning to ground ourselves, through breath work, through positive thinking, through healthy mantras, we can learn to soothe the anxiety.
Hmm.
Then we can let people and situations be what they are, and we can
Hmm.
still take the action.
Mm.
Even if we feel anxious, you can feel anxious and take powerful action if you can soothe yourself.
Yep.
And it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the fear of success.
Hmm.
If I know that an action, a bold action I take or a new action I take might lead to variables that might be painful or uncomfortable or challenging or disruptive to my life, and if I know or have a high degree of confidence, I can
Yeah.
handle them. I can
Yes.
adapt. I can learn. I can recruit. I can delegate. I can do whatever.
Hmm.
I can accept. I can surrender. Right? Things like when I was 6, 7 years ago, I
Hmm.
had a tumor blocking my small intestine.
Well.
I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just know I couldn't eat. I was in pain all the time. I lost 30 pounds.
Hmm.
Doctors in Mexico, nobody could figure out what was wrong. Finally, luckily, a doctor ran a CAT scan, found the tumor, and took it out. And I've been fine ever since. But I surrendered into pain. I surrendered into death. I assumed it was going to kill me, and I assumed I would never know what was killing me. Right.
Hmm.
And once I surrendered into that, I found out, well, dying's not actually all that hard. It's
Mm.
not all that hard once you accept. I mean, we might think most of us are afraid of dying.
Interesting. Yeah.
What I found out is dying is not hard. Watching somebody you care about die is excruciating. I
Hmm.
watched the people around me be in pain.
Mm.
I watched my mother. She'd already lost her husband and two of her kids. Is she going to lose a third child before she dies?
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
It was painful. I watched my wife, my kids, my stepkids' grades. I'd only been in their life about a year and a half at this time.
Hmm.
Their grades went down. It wasn't until after my surgery and I got better that we had a school report. They dropped an entire grade, both of the kids.
Wow.
And I wasn't even that. I hadn't been in their life all that long.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not afraid of dying now. I don't want to suffer. I don't like being in pain. But
Yeah.
I even lived with pain for over 3 months, constant pain in my stomach. So I know I can handle. I know what I can handle. And
Hmm.
so that now lets me take greater risks and be
Hmm.
bolder and challenge myself
Hmm.
because I know I can handle it. And again, I'll be a broken record. I've got support systems there for me.
Yeah.
I
Makes
know I can
sense.
depend on my wife. I can depend on my guy friends. I can depend on employees that I have. I
Yeah.
can depend. I got people I can depend on. I don't have to do it all by myself.
I love it. I love it. This is very helpful. This has been a great conversation, Doctor. I appreciate it. If somebody wants to reach out to you, how do they find you? How can I direct my audience
Oh,
to
I'm in Puerto Vallarta. You can find me here.
just walk
Yeah.
around yelling your name?
Yeah, I'm here. I did have some guy. I was out of town, and my son and his girlfriend said somebody came to the house looking for you, and I thought, well, maybe somebody had been to one of my workshops, right? Because
Oh,
I
interesting.
have, but no, it didn't seem to be one of you, and so I got back in town, and I was lying up on my bed reading one afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and I heard somebody kind of clicking on the gate out there. The dog started barking, and I
Yeah.
look out and says Dr. Glover live here? And I said, who are you? And so I went down and talked to him. And so somebody did actually track me
Wow.
down. And
Oh, that's wild.
it did turn out well. He wasn't a stalker. And,
Yeah.
and actually, even the week right before that, I was the first celebrity sighting. I was
Oh, nice.
in a restaurant, a taco place with three of my buddies. And
Uh-huh.
a young man walked up to me and said, are you Dr. Glover? And I said,
Amazing.
yeah, how do you know me? He goes,
Yes.
I love your stuff. I love your book. I'm on vacation. I even told my family, wouldn't that be so cool if I bumped into Dr. Glover while I'm in Puerto Vallarta? And we did. What are the odds?
That's amazing.
What are the odds? So
That's amazing.
I'm in Puerto Vallarta. Okay. Go to drglover.com. That's easier.
Perfect.
drglover.com has
Perfect.
my courses, my workshops, my podcast. And then
Perfect.
integrationnation.net. That's my men's membership program we launched about a year ago. So integrationnation.net. Thank
Final
you.
question that we like to ask our guests. So I focus a lot on my podcast on specific rituals and routines and resilience. So If you could go back to, let's say, your 20-year-old self and tell that person maybe top three rituals and routines to start adopting then, what do you think you would tell that person?
Mm. I would say have a get up early-ish every morning. Now, I'm not one of those, 4:30 in the morning, I'm up. But for me, 6
Right.
to 7 o'clock is early-ish. Have some quiet time with yourself. I
Yeah.
do that every morning. Some meditation, some journal writing, some reading of good stuff. I find that fundamental. So there's one.
Hmm.
Um, two, I would say start eating healthy and going to the gym and keep it up
Mm,
for a lifetime.
I love it. Yeah.
For a lifetime. And the third would be stay connected with your guy friends. Don't let them fall between the cracks, slip out of awareness.
Yeah.
Every time nowadays with text messaging and Zoom, there's no excuse not to
Yeah.
stay connected with your guy friends. And
Yeah.
as men, we need those guy friends. And it's hard to make guy friends.
Hmm.
So if you can, keep the ones you got while
I
you
love
make
it.
new ones.
I love it. Those are three great ones. Thank you. And then, final question, resilience. How do you define that? And what is one thing that we can do today to stay resilient?
You know what? Well, since I've said enough times, have a support system. That helps.
Yeah.
But let's go back to kind of where we started, and I know something you preach. Get enough sleep.
Yeah.
Get enough sleep. When I track my sleep, I've learned through tracking, through Aura Ring for 2 or 3 years now, the Whoop device.
Yes.
Um, I find that if I'm in bed 9:30 ish, 10 at the latest, light out 10:30 at the latest, minimal amount of screen in the bed. I
Hmm.
still have a kind of a bad habit of kind of looking at sports scores
Sure.
on you know um, but the getting in bed by a certain time
Perfect.
seems to really help the deep sleep. And so I've just kind of done the deep dive of what
Yeah.
helps a deep sleep, because as you talk
Love
about
it.
the testosterone, human growth hormone,
Yeah.
the lowering of the cortisol, everything is so dependent on how we sleep. And
Absolutely.
so I'd say just make that the highest priority. And um and yeah, so cutting out the screen time, wearing the blue light blockers,
Yeah.
and cut the alcohol. I've never been a big drinker, but yeah, drinking at night is so disruptive of
Yeah.
our sleep hygiene.
It really
So
is.
so
Great.
that'd be for resilience. Get a good night's sleep.
Amen. I love it. Amen. I love it. Dr. Glover, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Like I told you off screen, you've changed my life for the better. You've changed a lot of my clients' life. You're an incredible influence, and truly, you are a genius in your space and an absolute legend. So, thank you for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
I
you,
mean
you
it.
made you made me feel good. If nothing, this is great, and I look forward to talking with you more, because
That'd be great.
what you do is right up my interest alley of things I'm really focusing on as well. So
Absolutely. Use me as a resource, my
I hope we
friend.
can continue our conversations.
I would love that. I would love that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Be well.